There is a popular image of the Library of Alexandria. Flames, scrolls burning, knowledge screaming into the night. A single moment, a single catastrophe, one day when humanity became poorer forever. It's a powerful image. It's also probably wrong, because the Library of Alexandria did not disappear in one dramatic event. It faded. And the truth is much stranger and much more human than the legend. Before we talk about how it disappeared, we need to understand what it was. The Library of Alexandria was not just a building, it was an idea. Founded in the early 3rd century BCE in Egypt under the rule of the Ptolemaic dynasty, it was part of a larger institution called the Mauseon, a place dedicated to the Muses. Think less quiet reading room, more ancient research university. Scholars lived there, worked there, argued there. The goal was simple and wildly ambitious: collect all human knowledge. A world that wanted to know everything. The rulers of Alexandria were obsessed with knowledge. Ships entering the harbor were searched for books. Scrolls were copied. The originals were kept. The copies were returned. Aggressive, yes. Effective, extremely. At its height, the library may have held hundreds of thousands of scrolls. Astronomy, mathematics, medicine, philosophy, engineering, literature. This wasn't nostalgia. This was cutting-edge research. What we likely lost. Here's the painful part. We don't know exactly what was in the library, but we know who worked there. Euclid shaping geometry, Eratosthenes calculating Earth's circumference with shocking accuracy, Archimedes, whose works were studied and copied, early medical texts describing surgery and anatomy. Much of this knowledge survived elsewhere. Some of it didn't, and that uncertainty is what fuels the legend. The famous story, Julius Caesar and the Fire. The most popular culprit is Julius Caesar. In 48 BCE, Caesar was involved in a civil war in Egypt. During fighting in Alexandria, fires broke out in the harbor. Some ancient sources say the fire spread and destroyed parts of the library. Important detail: they say parts, not necessarily the main library, not necessarily everything. And even ancient writers disagreed on what burned. This was not a clean before and after moment. The library wasn't one building. Here's a detail that ruins the dramatic version. The Library of Alexandria existed in multiple locations. There was the main library near the royal palace, a secondary library at the Serapeum temple. So even if one site was damaged, others likely survived, which means no single fire could erase everything. The slow decline begins. After Caesar, the library didn't vanish. It kept operating, but under different conditions. Political instability increased, funding fluctuated, royal support weakened. Libraries don't burn down easily. They die when no one pays the librarians. Knowledge needs maintenance. Scrolls are fragile. They rot, they crumble, they require copying. Without money, scribes stop copying. Without copying, texts disappear. No fire required, just neglect. Christianity, conflict, and confusion. Centuries later, Alexandria became a Christian city. Pagan institutions lost support. Temples were repurposed or destroyed. In 391 CE, the Serapeum was destroyed during religious conflict. Did it contain library texts? Maybe, maybe not. Sources are unclear. But what we do know is that by this point, the Great Library as originally imagined was already a shadow of itself. The Muslim conquest myth. Another popular story blames the Muslim conquest of Alexandria in the 7th century. A famous quote claims, "If the books agree with the Quran, they are unnecessary. If they disagree, they are dangerous." Sounds dramatic, it's also almost certainly a later invention. The story appears centuries after the event with no reliable contemporary sources. Historians largely reject it. The library didn't vanish in one ideological purge. That version is too neat. So when did it actually disappear? That's the uncomfortable answer. There is no single day, no final fire, no last scream of knowledge. The Library of Alexandria disappeared the way many institutions do, gradually, quietly, through neglect, politics, and changing priorities. By the time people realized what was gone, it had been gone for generations. The real tragedy isn't that knowledge was destroyed, it's that knowledge was not valued enough to be preserved. No villain needed, no conspiracy required, just shifting power. The library didn't fail. We did. The library was an extraordinary achievement for its time, but it depended on state funding, political stability, cultural support. When those vanished, so did the institution. This isn't ancient history, it's a pattern. Why the legend refuses to die. People want a single villain, a single moment. It makes the loss easier to process. A slow decline is harder because it suggests something uncomfortable, that civilization loses knowledge not in explosions, but in silence. What survived anyway? Despite everything, not all was lost. Greek texts survived in Rome, Byzantium, the Islamic world. They were translated, copied, studied. The Renaissance didn't rediscover knowledge from nothing. It inherited what others protected. Final myth-busting. The Library of Alexandria did not vanish overnight. It was not destroyed by one fire. It was not erased by one conqueror. It faded because preservation requires effort, every generation. The Library of Alexandria wasn't humanity's greatest failure. It was one of its earliest warnings. Knowledge is fragile. Institutions are temporary. And what we don't actively protect, we quietly lose. Not in flames, but in forgetting.